Alright, so let's get working on the drums. In a previous video, we've already set up the MIDI routings to make sure that we can trigger the Roland TR8 drum machine from our Ableton session. In the following few parts, we are going to record the actual audio that's coming from the drum machine, and we are going to implement that into Ableton and into our template and eventually into our own live set. So let's get going. Alright, welcome back. My name is Tils from the 16 Bar. If this is your first time around this YouTube channel and you would like to learn more about synthesizers or electronic music production in general, I highly encourage you to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon to make sure that you don't miss anything. Alright, so in a previous video, we have already set up the entire MIDI session so we can control our Roland TR8. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend that you go back and watch that before you proceed with this one. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the 24-bar pattern of all the individual MIDI clips that we designed earlier to trigger our TR8 drum machine. Let's go through it one by one. We have a kick drum. We have the offbeat hi-hat. We have a snare. We have the claps. And we are using the mid-tom of the TR8 as well as the rim shot. So what you're hearing when I turn the Ableton session on is the actual TR8 playing. Now if you start adjusting parameters, you'll be able to do that in a live setting. Also, as you can see, I have labeled all my MIDI clips as well as the MIDI tracks. So I know that in this MIDI clip, the kick drum is being triggered by the C1 note. I know that on this MIDI track, the off hi-hat is being triggered by the D♯2 note. It's just a little bit of organizing and maintenance that I like to do. Now, it is very important to understand that we are not using the TR8's internal sequencer to record the drums that we are eventually going to put in this production. We are sending MIDI notes from Ableton to the TR8, and we are recording the TR8 sound that is triggered by Ableton. If I play the TR8, it's just gonna play whichever sequence you last put in there. So this is the TR8's own sequencer playing. But if I play the Ableton sequence that we have here, it's something entirely different. Now, if you want to know how to set up this in your MIDI settings, and if you haven't watched that earlier video, I strongly recommend that you go back and watch that episode. Okay, so let's record the drums. First and foremost, we have to set up the TR8 as our audio interface, because we are not going to be recording the drum sounds through our main mixer or audio interface. We're actually going to be using the Roland TR8 as our audio interface, because what that's going to allow us to do is to record each and every drum element independently and simultaneously, so you don't have to go back and record everything one by one. So this is how you do it. Once you've connected your Roland TR8 to your computer and you've installed all the necessary drivers, it's going to show up as an option in your preferences under the audio tab. So you just go ahead and click on the TR8. I've already chosen the TR8. Now the next thing that I suggest that you do is you set up the labeling of your input configuration. So the TR8 has 11 different instruments that you can record simultaneously, and they are being sent into Ableton from the 3rd all the way through the 13th audio input. Now you have to enable these as mono inputs. The 1st and 2nd should be enabled as a stereo input, because that is what corresponds with the full mix of the TR8. We are not going to be using this to record though. So as you can see, my labelings goes as number 3 is the kick, number 4 is the snare, number 5 is low tom, number 6 is mid tom, and so on and so forth, all the way up to number 13, which is the ride cymbal. Now make sure you do these labelings, because this is going to make your life a heck of a lot easier when it comes to assigning the actual audio inputs to the MIDI tracks. Okay, so I'm gonna show you one example here, and let's take the kick drum. I'm gonna solo this. And what I suggest that you do is that under each and every drum element that you're planning to use in the production, under the MIDI track itself, you create an audio track, and that's where you set up the input routings. So in this instance, I have my MIDI clip that's triggering the kick drum. I have my kick on track number 5, and right now it's triggering the TR-8. Very nice. And then I have the corresponding audio channel set up right under it. And as you can see, it is set to external in. And I'm going to choose external in number 3, which is connected to the kick drum input. Make sure your monitoring switch is set to off, and make sure that you record enable your audio track. Do this for all the rest of the tracks. As you can see, I've already set this up for the snare, for the clap, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the rim shot. So you can see each and every one of them are record enabled, and you can do that by holding down the control or command on a Mac and just choosing all the tracks that you want to enable for recording. Okay, so before we start recording the drum elements, obviously we want to make them sound like something that fits the production. So that is why we did all the work that we did in the synth elements. That's why we changed them. So now we can adjust the drum sounds to accommodate for the synthesizers. So let's listen to the synths as well as the drums all together, and I'm gonna dial in what it is that I'm looking for. I like the tuning of the kick drum. I think I'm gonna pull the attack down a little bit, it's a bit too sharp for me. We'll keep the decay down as well, because we don't want the kick drum to be too overpowering. Leave the comp. Leave the compressor to 0. Snare drum. A little bit more decay on the mid-tom. Rim shot. Yeah, I want a short decay on that one. Hand clap. Nice long decay. And I actually like its tuning. Closed hat. And the right cymbal. Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, don't worry too much at this point about the levels of the drums. We are going to record them first, and then we are going to do a quick mixing session to make sure that all the drums sit well in the overall mix.